So this presentation will deal with work so far done under the objective 3.2 of our project method. Of course, this is not going to be a short one. It's going to last quite a long time, but this is the initiation of the whole process. So far, Branko and I were discussing a lot of what should be done and how can we do that. We also met with Veljko, who helped us with some of the aspects. So I guess next steps will be actually the ones that will allow us to say that we fulfilled some of the goals regarding this adaptation segment of meter 3.2. Obviously, all of the NGOs that are included from Pula, Slavonski Brod, Zadar and Zagreb are going to be part of this 3.2 objective because it's the most relevant for the project to deal with the cities that are mostly associated with each and every one of us. And obviously the expected outputs of this will be and need to be published in whether conference or any kind of a journal paper. Both, I think we have enough knowledge and experience to actually have something published once we gather enough materials for it. So far and the planned activities are shown on this diagram. Once again, apologies for having it in Croatian. Maybe I can make a version of it in English at a certain point, but I hope at least having the presentation in English helps to a certain amount. Anyway, the phase one that we are currently undertaking, so to say the screening phase, where we concluded that SecAps. Yes.
Full screen of the presentation.
Sorry?
Full screen of the presentation. Can you press F5 or something?
Yeah, I would like to do so, but then I would need to stop the presentation to see you again because I don't have 2 monitors here in front of me. It's too small for you. Okay, but okay. Anyway, if this is better, then proceed. We proceed like this. So we last time when we met in Pula and throughout the activities following Pula meeting, we concluded that SecAps as a, let's say, most inclusive document that deals with climate change adaptation and actions that can be undertaken on a city level are actually the most important and most available documents that we can start from. We observed different methodologies, and even though there are differences, the methodologies prescribed by the Joint Research Center, the GRC, seems to be really inclusive and really, let's say, published in detail with a lot of pages describing all of the segments that SecAps need to include. So we have so far done introducing ourselves to SecAps since, let's say, I can speak personally for myself. Even though I work in the sector, SecAps were not my focus, and I was not that familiar with the methodologies, the aims, goals, and everything else that is being done around SecAps. We also read what we so far could manage, the literature regarding actually SecAps and how they are introduced across the Europe and how they are actually procured through different European projects, and what have been the experience gathered around Europe through those different projects. One of the projects that we saw was that is being done still for different stakeholders, and in which DOR has also quite a significant share, is the project that deals with SecAps for Osijek, Rijeka, Zadar, and Velika Gorica. And we actually, as a first step, observed more carefully those 4 cities. And that's the first step, I repeat. And the important thing is that all of those cities, they have SEAPs as a previous version, or let's say a smaller version of SECAPs, which were introduced recently. So SEAPs, then SECAPs, and those cities have an intermediate document observing and trying to follow the results that were, or not the results, but the goals that were set by SEAP in 2013. So we hope that this process will allow us to actually spot the most important flaws of the current process as a whole, and hopefully we can take that to the phase 2, where we have the intention to form different focus groups and provide some kind of feedback from the questionnaires and from the meetings that we intend to organize for those people. So Branko will, of course, interrupt me if I go into a wrong direction speaking about our intentions in this domain. But the intention and the general idea is to group and have all the SECAP experts dealing with SECAP and writing SECAPs actually in one place. There are several institutions that are doing those. We have connections in many, and we have a feeling that once the contact is initiated, those people will be willing to sit down and exchange experience. The thing is, so far we do not know whether this kind of all-inclusive meeting has been done among different institutions that do SECAPs. They all follow the similar guidelines, which are EU recognized. But is there anything that can be specifically adjusted to the Croatian system? Can something specifically be added to SECAPs that are being done for Croatia specifically? Are there certain flaws in the process which cannot be applied to Croatia similarly like they are being applied to Germany? So are there some specifics that can be recognized from those experts that are dealing and writing SECAPs, and which would form the first focus group? And the second focus group, so to say, a control group, which would include people that actually work and live in the segment of renewable energy, energy transition, green transition, that we are all part of it. I can say for myself, I was working in the field, but let's say until a couple of months ago, I was not directly connected with SECAP, but I had my opinions, my formed opinion about many things which were based on different literature, different physical constraints, etc. So when we compared the feedback from the first focus group to the second focus group, so from the people that will hopefully have little to no contact with SECAP, that will say just from the experience and background that they have, what should be included in SECAP and how some things could be done, or how they would do some things that would eventually form a SECAP methodology. So these people would form the second group, and hopefully we can conclude that all of those groups have the similar feedback that says that SECAP is good. SECAP should be done the way it is done. Maybe a little smaller tweaking can be done, but basically they could conclude that SECAP is good. And then we only have this problem of following up every SECAP with methodological and constant and consistent following of results, and let's say evidenting of all that is done and all of the activities, and hopefully reduction of environmental impact. So these two control groups should be hopefully should be coherent about the results and SECAP methodologies. But if they are not, then we can hope for even better outcome, because we could provide feedback and could provide potential improvements to the whole process. Third focus group would be of all the stakeholders, different cities, different people included in all of the process, where we could propagate all of those findings that we have. So let's say that from the phase 2, we find out what can be done and what should be done regarding the SecUps. And in phase 3, the intention is to form a database which would include mostly all the available data that SecUps can provide. Part of the methodology of SecUp, as Veljko and colleagues from DOR know, and also colleagues from Energy Institute Hrvoje Požar, is actually formed into a certain database that observes the baseline scenario, the, let's say, currently available data. So this baseline emission inventory is something that is often used as an input to a software which helps throughout the SecUp development process. So this is the phase where we hope to have, let's say, horizontal comparison and grouping of all the data that we could have for different SecUps. As we said, we would start from Osijek, Rijeka, Zadar, and Velika Gorica, expanded through Pula, Zagreb, and Slavonski Brod, and hopefully through Group 3, which would include all the other cities which will be having SecUps in the near future. Of course, there are a lot of those currently participating in the, what's the English expression? Governor agreement. Yeah, that's the one. So, and this is going to be more and more inclusive, with more and more municipalities and cities having SecUps. And hopefully what we could achieve with grouping and having all the data in one place, we could hopefully have maybe a motivational effect on everybody else, where they could achieve better following of the results, and hopefully would have some kind of reference to everything that is done. And also what we would offer is some kind of enhancement, some kind of additional structure and coherence given to the whole process, which we would form through some kind of multi-criteria analysis. So a suggestion was to provide the analytic hierarchy process model as the one that would weight all the criteria, results, and potential benefits in a structured and, let's say, scientifically proven way. It would provide the visualization of benefits and costs, and most of all, it would allow for better observation of the results. Also, what we hope to have once we group everything together, what we also hope to have is some kind of a cost-benefit analysis, which would, let's say, give the government and the policymakers some kind of feedback if they want to invest into certain region, into certain city, a certain amount of money, which would be the best place to do so, where the funds would be hopefully used most efficiently. So maybe targeting certain places would harness more benefits than just providing the, let's say, linear distribution of funds or something like that. So it could also increase the willingness of cities to somehow show the competence, and all of this could be done because a lot of data is floating around, and it's distributed among different expert groups. Maybe we could have a bridge and helping them solve those, let's say, distances between those different groups. So this is our plan, all summarized in this few phases. Of course, Branko will also help out if something needs an additional clarification. But as you can see, there are, let's say, 3 phases which would lead up to the phase 4, which would include something of an analytic hierarchy process model development. So it's a multi-criteria analysis, which also includes some kind of a fuzzy segment, because you need experts and you need structured questionnaires and structured questions for them to provide feedback to you, which are the most important, less important, or in pairwise comparison, more important criteria, solutions, or whatever the questionnaire would include. So the point is that those focus groups that we formed and the results that we had from those focus groups can be again used. The same communication, the same line of communication could be used for the creation of this AHP model. So not to go into too many details, I have an illustrative example afterwards, which describes the whole process and why we think that it could be used specifically for the, let's say, database and the structure that SecOps could have after we, let's say, process all the steps that I described previously. So AHP is a structured way of saying which of the alternatives, different alternatives, have the best possible outcome. So you structure the whole and design the whole process, provide, let's say, some of the math in the background, which simply through a certain eigenvector and matrix calculation provides an answer which is really qualitative. So you have a, let's say, a good measure how important something is. And if you feed the model with different data, it gives the similar result for all the SecOps all around Croatia, which would hopefully be a good measure and a good comparison for all of those. So you go from a goal, a certain goal, you develop the criterias, you develop the sub-criterias, you develop the potential outcomes of the alternatives, where, for example, the alternative could be, okay, invest into Pula or invest into any other city as a prime source of potential CO2 emission reduction. So you design the model and structure the whole problem into a hierarchy, as you can see here. You provide the comparisons, the evaluation of experts, which criteria and sub-criteria should have different weighting factors. So not all criteria should be equally important, or we could develop a model which would have tailor-made criteria for different aspects. So then it's actually the simplest thing to do the calculation. It's not a problem to have it. And there are also different metrics that help you with providing the consistent comparisons, and then you can maybe eliminate certain outliers and maybe have your expert knowledge be evaluated in a statistically fair way, so to say. And then finally, you aggregate everything that's done in the three previous phases, and then you find how much of each of the alternative actually benefits the whole process. Which is enhancing this model, so to say, is this cost-benefit segment, which is then actually calculated independently and then paired with the analytic hierarchy, where costs can be evaluated independently and the benefits could be included in everything which is structured in this AHP way. So an illustrative example to just provide a certain feedback how the method works is if you want to select a car. So if you want to select a car, you have a wide range of requirements and a wide range of preferences which would need to fit into such a model. It can be the cost, the environmental impact, the capacities, or so to say, how many people will be driving the car in or should be driven in the car, security or whatever. And those alternatives here, they can be a specific car, or they can be a certain model for, I don't know, different car producers, or you can also have a model which would help you choose, for example, between selecting a petrol car, a diesel car, or electrical car. So it can be also so you can see that the model can similarly be shaped for you to choose, for example, the electric car as the best possible solution. And then inside of the electric car offer, you can choose different electric cars. And maybe from this point on, once you, let's say, choose an electric powered vehicle, you can have different structures going downside, telling you which specific electrical car you could choose based on your different opinion. So inputting the values into the model is something which is, if you are choosing a car for yourself, which is primarily dependent on what you think. So you're an expert for choosing your car. Of course, that's not the most objective one, but if you take time and invest time into different aspects of selecting a car and seeing how different things act and impact security, environment, or wherever, you could include those into forming your opinion and your comparisons. There are different ways and different scaling methods, but let's say that this scaling is usually for the AHP purposes done in a way which is reflected in this table. And basically you need to go through all the pairs of different criteria that you set and say which is the more important one. So if you observe the cost and the security, you would say that cost is more important for you, but the intensity of it being more important is quite low. And then if you want to see the importance between the security and, for example, the look of the car, the out exterior, or whatever the right expression is, you could say that the security is more important, and it's vastly more important for, let's say, for me, or somebody can have different experience, but this is the model that you build if you want to have a, let's say, structured way of navigating through a wide range of offer that car industry can offer at the moment. So you basically structure the model, and this is what I have recently done just for the demonstrative purposes. You place different weights for different criteria. So these all sum to one, and they all can come from these weighting factors. But the point is, once you put this into a matrix, you basically end up with different indices and different weighting factors for your criteria. Then you can further develop the sub-criteria, which actually then inside of the different main criteria, they further develop the importance of different aspects. And finally, when you conclude this simple process, when you devise a model, I mean, there are also different softwares. I worked with one which actually do most of the calculation for you and have everything already structured, but basically you can develop your own models, your Excel charts by yourself, which allow you more freedom in deciding on whatever you would like. And then you get the final answer, which car has the most benefit according to the criteria you set. So this is the main actually outcome of the process. But then also weighting of the criteria can be, let's say, really quantitative, since you can have the cost, you can have the range of your car, and then those can be really, if normalized, with a certain way. They can be really expressed numerically without any other connotations. But as I said, how important is the environmental impact compared to the cost? These things can be different for different people. So this kind of subjectivity compared to the objectivity that we hope to have in the model that SecUps would be included in, because we would ask everybody who's dealing and working in the sector, what's your opinion, and who has the more relevant opinion than the people, experts working in a certain field. And therefore, through this illustrative example, just to have an idea what the model is, I will also show you an example from the real world, and this is actually a model that I worked on, which has the AHP hierarchy process included in a wider context, which plans the development of the electrical grid. So my background is I'm an electrical engineer, and these are the kind of problems that I work in. So this was developed with in the cooperation with colleagues from Energy Institute Hrvoje Požar, and it actually included the similar phase one, which included gathering of all the data in one place, standardization and comparison of all the measurable criteria, which allowed us to first develop the, in our opinion, most fair comparison criteria, and then process all the data in a way that is similar for everybody. Why was that important? Because previously speaking, everything was done separately on, let's say, 21 different level, 21 areas in Croatia. Each had its own methodology. Each provided certain feedback to the central system operator office, and then they needed to dispatch funds based on results which were all done in a small, let's say, with small differences, and they were not standardized in a best possible way. Additional problem was that they did not observe the others, they just observed themselves. So this was the way how you can observe also the others when you consider your specific problem. This is exactly the parallel that we can make different cities observing just themselves, but when you extend the scope, and then when you observe them all in parallel, perhaps you could have greater benefits. So just give me a second. I will open the... So this is the let's say the only place that you actually need to go if you want to follow up with whatever you do, and your certain feeding area is described here. So as you can see, there's a lot of data that was gathered for those purposes, and there were also, let's say, expert opinion gathered for measuring of how important different things are. You can see there's a similarity between those simple ones that I did for the car selection and those that are done here. And then you calculate those matrices for all the areas, for all the criteria, and you rank them to a certain level. We use here different tier levels, so to say, because there was a lot of those. So we said everybody in a range from here to here are in tier 1, everybody in a range from here to here are tier 2, just to have a more comprehensive evaluation. And finally, you get certain results which show you ranking of different areas in regard to your criteria. And for example, you can see that you have objectively speaking, a good measure that Jastrebarsko, for example, is much better to start investment with than Valpovo or Orahovica. So if you have certain effort available, certain funds available, perhaps you could focus yourself on different levels, on different cities, for example, and provide more support to those because they've demonstrated that they can achieve much more. And those answers, once we have the data of the SECAPs, once we have the analysis of the SECAP methodology, once we have the AHP setup, could actually be quite valuable outcome of the project that we are all working in. So all of those are actually the results which are shown for different criteria, for different ways you can show those results and etc. So I am speaking from my experience, and this had a good comparison and good parallel with the process that we want to make happen. So imagine you have here different cities. Imagine you have evaluation of their baseline inventories and potential outcomes that they could achieve with different measures they take to reduce the environmental impact. Then you could really have a good information and visualization how everybody compares to everybody else, and perhaps you could have good way of deciding where to and how to invest. So this is my last slide. I am here for all the questions, discussion. My camera is not the best one. I can see now that I'm quite in the blur, but hopefully I managed to relay the so far plans and so far completed tasks or started tasks, and hopefully we can proceed successfully to a planned end. Well, that's it.